Hi, folks. Ryan Honeyman here from Lift Economy. Many folks have come to us over the last 10 years and asked, how do I get more involved in creating an economy that works for the benefit of all life? They also ask, what skills and experiences do I need to help make this transition? So 3 years ago, we created something called the Next Economy MBA to help address this and similar questions. Lift Economy's Next Economy MBA is an online course that's designed for entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, students, recent graduates, employees, and folks who want to learn more about transformational next economy strategies and businesses. Join the growing alumni network of nearly 250 alumni who've gone through this program and learned essential skills and hopefully built lifelong relationships for catalyzing businesses in the emergent and regenerative economy. So we encourage you to check out our course. You can go to lifteconomy.com/MBA. The next course, Cohort 7, starts on September 21st, 2021. So once again, go to www.lifteconomy.com/MBA. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Next Economy Now. The goal of this podcast series is to highlight the leaders who are taking a regenerative, bioregional, equitable, democratic, racially just, and whole systems approach to creating the new economy.
Welcome, Rha.
Thank you. So great to be here, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure, Rha. We've had the privilege to talk and connect a few times. I'd love just to invite you to share some of your story and how you've come to this powerful work that you're doing now.
You know, I always begin with my parents because that's just the source for me. Born as a change of life baby into what I like to call a intersection of civil rights and hip hop movements. And my parents were born in the 1920s, which means they survived over 2 decades of Jim Crow segregation in this country. And so having that sort of juxtaposition of being younger while having parents who firsthand lived through the civil rights movement has been a deep gift and blessing for me and has very much shaped my activism and my perspective. I'm the youngest of 4. You know, they always instilled in us sort of 3 core values: the importance of family, the importance of education, and the importance of community. And they really believed that if you had any advantage, any opportunity, you had a responsibility to make a way for other people. And they lived that way. You know, very much growing up in our home, we would have people come in from all over the world and different kinds of stories, different kinds of challenges or circumstances. And, you know, my parents really modeled an open door policy, and we were raised in that environment. And so it was natural that was our orientation growing up. And certainly for me, it was not lost on me. My work over the course of the last 3 plus decades, you know, began as a political organizer supporting the work of my parents. My mother worked in Operation Push with Jesse Jackson and then the Rainbow Coalition as it transitioned and evolved. And my father worked as an attorney for the NAACP, and both were also active in the Urban League. So just these, you know, sort of grassroots foundational civil rights organizations were very much a part of their day-to-day reality. And so my activism initially grew from there. But then, you know, as a younger generation, creating my own kind of thing, and discovered at a very young age hip-hop culture, which really transformed my life in the sense of it gave me an outlet and a channel and a vehicle to really be expressed about what I was experiencing, what I was seeing in the world. So that was really the sort of the beginnings for me. And then it evolved from, you know, political activism and engagement into community organizing, and then really sort of tipped into culture. I would say that my work, particularly for the last 2.5 decades, has really been rooted in culture and this idea of shifting culture. You know, my impetus for beginning Move the Crowd and the work that we do really came out of being a creative and being a cultural creative and not having a sustainable strategy for the change that I wanted to be in the world, and having to go get a sort of very unorthodox business education in order to be able to really support my capacity to fulfill on what I believed was my purpose. And so, in going to get that unorthodox business education, I like to say, I was in, these personal growth and development and human potential training rooms and business development training rooms with the Bob Proctors and the Jay Abrahams and the Harv Eckers and Chet Holmes and of the world. The work was incredible in the sense that it gave me the opportunity to really address my relationship to money and being resourceful and having resources. As much as the work was amazing and incredible and gave me that opportunity, they really weren't talking to me. They weren't talking to me as someone who wanted to have my mission live at the center of what I was building. They weren't talking to me as a young woman of color who had a very different experience in terms of the world and sort of the orientation and the places that I came from and the systems and structures that I'd navigated. And they weren't talking to me as a creative whose products and markets did not necessarily fit in those neatly prescribed boxes. So there was a significant amount of extrapolation I had to do in order to really have the work be relevant. But once I began to apply the concepts and apply the ideas, I was able to triple my income in a really short period of time. And that became the impetus for thinking about, okay, who else do I know that I could teach this to, right? Going back to my parents, right? Who else do I know? I thought about all of the brilliant, amazing, intelligent, engaged, creative, and cultural entrepreneurs I knew who were really trying to figure out the sustainability piece and the profitability piece. And that was really the impetus for creating Move the Crowd.
Can you share more about what Move the Crowd is?
What we do.
And
yes.
What you guys do?
So we are an entrepreneurial training company. We, our sort of signature offering has been our True Paid Good Academy, which is a 9-month mentoring and coaching training program, multifaceted mentoring and coaching training program. And so we work with entrepreneurs in the emergent and established stages of development and helping them both articulate a compelling vision for what it is that they want to build or create, to build the confidence to be able to really share that vision and give life and give breath to that vision. We help them discern what the value proposition is related to that vision. And then we help them develop sustainable business strategies to actually be able to activate on that vision. And within that, then also look at what's their ultimate tangible impact or desired impact. In other words, we help them think about, okay, if you were able to share this offering with 1 million people, with 100 million people, what are you ultimately wanting to move the needle on in the world? And so whether an entrepreneur is working on building a very local venture or whether an entrepreneur is working on building something that's global and that they're really looking to scale in the more traditional sense of scaling, it's all rooted in purpose and the alignment of their vision and their mission and their purpose. And that's the heart of what we teach.
So what have some of the successes that you've seen or realized been?
We've had, and it's really a humbling question, because we've had the privilege to really help lift incredible leaders who have worked at this intersection of true and paid and good. I think of Reshma Sajani, who is sort of immediately comes to mind, the founder and CEO of Girls Who Code. And I don't know if you know Reshma, but we've had the honor and the privilege to help hold the vision and the lifting of Girls Who Code. And, when Resh began this work, it was 160 girls in a summer program. And I'm so proud to say that, through 2015, they served over 40,000 young women. And the goal and the aim is by 2020 that 1 million young women will have come through this program, and she's actually on track to achieve that. And it is about, shifting the paradigm and really shifting the field of technology and understanding that, if we recognize that technology is going to be a massive driver in the way that we think about solutions for our future, how is it that 85 of or 51% of the population only occupies, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12% of that change-making community, and if we look at other assets or facets of diversity and representation, there's work to be done there. Reshma is really holding the door open, not only for young women, but she's holding the door open for young women who come from communities that would not normally have access to thinking about computer science or thinking about computer science degrees. And one of the things that she mentioned is that, when I have the conversation with women about what they want to build, whether it's an app or a platform, They're always thinking about solving a problem in the world. They're always thinking about making change. That the natural orientation of where these young women go is in creating change. And why would we not be investing in that kind of potential? So that's one of many examples I can give, but she comes to mind, right at the top of the list.
Yeah, thank you. And this hugely important work, getting the digital sectors more diverse, of course, because as they're programming technology, they're really writing the future of how we interact and relate, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm curious, in this work you're doing, you shared a little bit of your background and your path to your own success. What do you see as some of the best practices? And one way I like to frame it is, I know it's case dependent, but are there certain things that it's like a small change, but you get a big impact? What's the minimum we can change for kind of the maximum result?
It's a great question.
How you see that in your work?
It's interesting. I just finished a almost 2-hour working session with a group of entrepreneurs who are all over the country. And one of the things that I feel at the very, very beginning, we have to bring, again, you want to talk about small change, big impact, is our alignment and our clarity. So much of what guides our ability, I believe, to be successful is alignment, is really being aligned with our vision and our mission and our purpose. And it's one of the first things that we teach in the context of our work at Move the Crowd is, when you bring your clarity, you actually become a magnet for the kinds of opportunities that you want to attract and the kinds of experiences that you want to support. And, your presence, bringing your aligned clarity and your commitment in your presence is something that can dramatically shift what happens around you in your environment as a result. Working then from that clarity, whether you're taking just daily actions, right? And, as you say, they're varied depending upon what people are building and depending upon what stage they may be, but taking actions consistent with your articulated commitment and your aligned commitment is the fastest way to get there, no matter what you're building. And I name it because I think that sometimes we undervalue the power of being aligned, and we undervalue the power of being clear. Some people wake up clear, right? In other words, they've always known what their purpose was. They've always known what it is that they're being called to do. And it's really about orchestrating and organizing their environment to be able to support the fulfillment of that commitment. But for many people, it is a journey, and some it is a struggle to really be able to find what is the center stream. And so I recognize and understand, and we all know that sort of traditional business was very much about capitalizing on what was profitable. And there was a very particular bottom line that drove the way that people might choose to step into the journey of entrepreneurship. We see entrepreneurship as a sacred journey. We actually see it as a spiritual journey, dare I say. And from that perspective, it is really about, what are you here to do? What are you being called to do? What is your dharma? And how do you orchestrate and build and structure your energy and your commitment and your contribution in a way that is in alignment with that, be it super mom or super mogul?
So I'm hearing self-actualization. How would this be different than, for example, spiritual enlightenment?
I don't know that it is different. I think it's about what is the foundation on what you build, I think is really what I'm talking about. And I think often when we get in conversations about how to build a business, it's about the strategies and the tactics and the tools and and we all know that those are important, and we all know that those have their place. But I often ask, the first question I'm asking anyone who's in an entrepreneurial conversation with me or with us is, what are you building on? What's the foundation? And so when you ask me about small change, big result, I'm going to say to you, go to work on your foundation.
And do you get some pushback? People saying, hey, I just want my business to work. Why are you messing with my life?
Yes, that's a great question. What I would say to you is by the time they come into our programs, they're clear. But certainly when I'm in broader communities, there is this sort of, question and unfortunately a really inaccurate perception of what the root of that work is really about. I believe that it's the hardest work that there is.
That's what I'm thinking.
Is to line up with who you say you are and to do what you say you're going to do. I believe is actually the hardest work that there is. Sounds simple, but not easy. Right. And so, I often bring it back to that and say, okay, great. Well, let's really talk about what is your relationship with doing what you said you would do. Even if we look at it in a day to day, like, did you promise your son you'd be home at 4:00 to play ball with him? And did you make it? Or did you get caught up at the office and did he get your litany of excuses? And sometimes when you bring it there in a secular, daily, everyday, context, people get it.
Yeah.
Right. But it is as sort of, because I don't think that there's anything sort of small about that, right? Being there for your child. I actually think that's probably the biggest thing you can do, right?
Absolutely.
But it's a very simple example. And I say something as simple as that to something as complex as, why are you building this business? And what's really at the heart of your motivation? And when you wake up every day, to what degree do you have a profound relationship with why you're here and what it is that you're here to do? And how does that relationship express itself in how you treat the members of your team, in how you show up for the people that you're here to serve, in how you think about what it is that you want to offer to the marketplace, and so on.
So you're essentially asking what could be interpreted as spiritual or theological inquiry, questions in the context of business.
Yes, or good old fashioned soul searching. However, because part of what I'm with you, Sean, and listen, anybody who knows me already knows I'm out. I'm spiritually outed. I've been outed. I mean, if you consider my last name, that's done. However, what I would also say to you is that I don't want people to get caught there, because what there is to gain is too important in terms of their own sense of fulfillment and happiness and quality of life and quality of experience. So, however you get there, whatever gets you there, the opportunity is to get there. Because, when you go to work on your foundation and when you have that clarity and alignment of purpose, then what there is to do actually becomes very easy.
Mm-hmm. So that's the big work.
My opinion. And I'm standing by it.
That's beautiful. So I'm curious, as you've endeavored to do this work, what have you learned, and maybe even more so, what have you been surprised by? Like, what did you learn that you just did not see it coming?
I think the thing that I've learned is that if we really want to experience success and we want to experience it on our own terms, that these foundational pieces really have to be center in the equation. And I'm going to give you an example. I have the privilege to work with people who are just getting started in the context of our business, and through a higher end invitation only offering that we do for high impact leaders, I've had the privilege to work with very, very successful people. And invariably, when I've gone to work with the very successful people, I've made the assumption that foundational work has been done. And what has surprised me over and over and over and over again is that not only is the foundational work pivotal when you're just starting out, but it's also pivotal when you're exponentially growing and scaling. There's a way that your foundation of who you know yourself to be gets shaken in order to accommodate the expansion and the growth that you're wanting to engage. And so sometimes I forget that, or I have forgotten that, or any of the times where I've sort of been like, oh, okay, I won't bring the touchy-feely stuff. Right? We'll just go into the tactics and the strategy, and invariably I've regretted it and realized, I've had to go back and actually revamp the strategy to go back and incorporate that foundational work. So that has certainly, been something that has surprised me. The other thing that I've learned is that we are creative and we're in a co-creative process anytime we're building and growing anything, right? Whether it's a tomato or a $500 million company. And our ability to stay imaginative and our ability to stay nimble. One of my beloved mentors, David Gershon, talks about, often has this mantra, stay true to the impulse, be flexible about the form. And, this way that we invite in our creativity is so important, no matter what we're building and no matter what we're earthing, and our ability to stay nimble in the context of how we're creating and how we're innovating, I think is imperative. We affectionately call it the pivot in our entrepreneurial world, but it's another form. It's another way of speaking about creativity and resourcefulness and this ability to be more fluid and emergent in how we create.
You're based on your description there. What do you see the connection between being creative in the context of evolving a business or solving a business problem, finding a new product or service, and what we might more traditionally think of artistic creativity? Do you see that as the same thing or distinct? Or?
I see them as kindred. I see them as deeply, deeply kindred. I think anytime we're in a creative space and anytime we're bringing something into fruition that has not existed before, we're tapping a particular source. We're tapping a particular kind of energy, and we're accessing, and all kinds of studies have been done, right? We're accessing certain regions of the brain, or, if you want to kind of come from it in terms of a physiology, right? Physiological perspective. I think they are one and the same in that we're tapping the same source. I think our ability to honor that process in the context of business, as well as in the context of artistry, which is also a form of business, though we don't necessarily always view it that way, and we have not been conditioned to view it that way, is also kindred. And it's one of the reasons why very much in the work that I've done in my activist years, and even in certain conversations I've been in different contexts and organizations, I've asked people what their relationship has been with artists, and sort of seeing artists as citizens who actually can come into organizations and push the thinking in ways potentially that people who are in the everyday and the day in and day out cannot. There's a way that, that our mind, when we're elevated and in that state of openness and we're in that state of clarity, there are ways that we can see things, we can see patterns, we can connect the dots in ways that we might not be able to. And so I think it is about how do we get into that heightened state of awareness that enables us to see. And again, whether you're working on a piece of music, a concerto, or whether you're working on the next tech app, I really believe you're tapping the same source.
I'm curious to get your reflections on how you see this moment in history. It's been quite a year, 2016, in terms of all kinds of events happening, but certainly there's, I think, a real tangible rising tide of social justice and awareness happening. I'm curious how you see that tying into your work.
I think for us, it's at the center of our work. I mean, our commitment is really to help foster a culture and an economy that is more accessible, equitable, and sustainable for us all. And I think that the waking and shaking of our reality, which is a lot of what we're experiencing, are really sort of rooted in these enduring issues that have just been building and building and building and building over time. And I think the question that we're being asked as humanity is, do we honestly believe that we can afford a culture and an economy where only certain people get to thrive and prosper and other people do not? Do we actually believe that we can afford that from the health even perspective of our entire ecosystem? So I think whereas traditionally there has been a perception that only certain people need to pay attention to these issues, I think what we're fast realizing and recognizing is, oh no, that we all need to step up to the plate. I describe it as being the age of the citizen. that we have moved out of what has been sort of this age of celebrity, this kind of iconic worship, and this sort of belief that success and opportunity and access are only really available to these particular sort of superhumans, to really entering into an age where people are much more preoccupied with their own brand of contribution. And I do, dare I say, that what has traditionally been defined as success being about professional achievement and personal achievement and mobility is now really being redefined as being about contribution and impact. And that is what I think we are birthing our way into. And what we know is that it gets most intense just before the baby comes. And so I believe that we are in the intensity of the birthing of a new culture and the birthing of a new economy. And it's rooted in the transformation of the core inequities that we've been navigating within our culture for a very, very long time.
So tell me about the future. What do you see in your lifetime? What do you think we have coming, and how might we get there?
Yeah, I'll share what I feel most excited by, because I think that's kind of where what you're touching for me here is, I'm excited by what I believe is this wave of macro movements that is starting to happen, where you're beginning to see sort of these larger commitments to the health and sustainability of our planet being carried by these mega conveners who are really holding space and holding open fields for various facets of work to be done that are going to support the transformation of this larger global culture. So I'm going to give you an example. Gender parity is now a macro movement, right? It's not just defined by any one specific thing, and it's not even just defined by the platform of feminism. It's become much broader, and it's much, much more multifaceted and multi-sectored and multi-strategied. And we're looking at all of the frontiers. And the ways in which being able to create a world where all of our citizens can engage is imperative and is important. I think the movement to lift consciousness and raise consciousness, right, or another way that people are describing as a spirituality movement, is now populating itself as a macro movement, right, where again there are various strategies and ways that people are coming into it, whether it's yoga or meditation or some of the other kinds of thought leadership that's out there that doesn't look like traditionally coming into a church on Sunday morning, right, or Saturday afternoon, is another macro movement. And very much to your point in terms of looking at the recent unrest, I think this idea of social and economic equality is also populating itself. So that excites me. And what I hope to be around for is, beginning to see, which I do believe I'm going to be able to be around for enough of, is beginning to see this awareness begin to tip mainstream. And I think that's what's happening with every incident, with every harsh wake-up call. More and more people are waking up. And I feel that more and more people are beginning to ask, what is my purpose? And why am I here? And more people are beginning to search for real meaning in a way like I don't think we've ever seen before. And hence my branding and framing this time as the age of the citizen. Very exciting to me. Hope to be around long enough to see the full awareness proliferate, our culture. That's what I'm here for.
Beautiful. I see it coming myself, and so I'm right there with you. I'm curious, who is inspiring you? Who are you watching? Who are you getting juiced by these days?
I have to always go first to the entrepreneurs that we serve. I've talked about Resh, of course, Reshma, and I would have to add to that, Gabrielle Bernstein and the Spirit Junkie movement, which is just exploding. And shout out to all the Spirit Junkies who may be watching this, but just, this sort of way that A Course of Miracles is now being integrated into the training and development of a new generation of healers and nutritionists and yoga teachers and meditation teachers, and even just that teaching spirituality could be cool and hip, right? I mean, culture game changer, right? Let's just say game changer, right? So I have to say that she inspires me. I'm also deeply inspired by the work of Rha Gupta, another one of our entrepreneurs, founder and CEO of Be More, and the work that they're doing in developing a training that actually transforms implicit bias using mindfulness with physicians. And when we consider what happens in our healthcare industry and the potential and the possibility to really gain parity in terms of the kind of treatment that people receive within the context of our healthcare system, game changing. So I'm inspired by him and all of the incredible work that he's doing. And again, like I said, the list could go on and on. Barb Schmidt and the Peaceful Life movement based out of Boca Raton, Florida, right? And the way that Barb is now ushering in and bringing in this next level of work around hope, unity, and change, and, building this community of over 4 million people worldwide and beginning to move this conversation of how do we take our spirituality into the world and onto the front lines of what's happening in our world today. And, saying to people it isn't enough to sit on your meditation pillow. Like, you really got to get up and you got to get out and you got to get into the movement, right? Very much like Sharon's off the mat work, right? Sean's off the mat work. This is a kindred opportunity in terms of what's moving through Barb's work. And, again, I could go on and on and on and on. Claudia Chan and the, people that we have the honor and privilege of serving and movements that we have the honor and privilege of helping, to lift and grow, which is, the reason I get up every morning. And as I know it is the reason why you get up every morning as well, my brother.
Yeah. It's a rich and beautiful time to be awake and alive and active, huh?
Yeah, truly, truly, truly.
What's going on with Move the Crowd that you could share with the folks? Is there any support you need? Anything, opportunities for people to get involved?
So thank you for that question. So what I will say, sort of in the long term, is that I am now working on a book. Which I'm really, really excited to say. And it's been a long time coming, but I kind of finally feel like, Sean, I'm at the place where I might have a little something to say or a little something to talk about.
Oh, bring it.
But it's really about this movement. But the impetus for me of really writing the book is beyond the ideology, which I do feel is so important, and setting the context and bringing the analysis, is the practicum. And, you and I have talked about this quite a bit. Is like, I'm a real stickler for the practicum. How does it become accessible to everyday people? How do they begin to apply it in their lives? And so really for me, this opportunity to do the book is really about the True Paid Good Blueprint and an ability to really start to be able to share that on a massive scale. What we've been able to see through the work that we've been able to do. And now how do we really be able to make that work and that technology accessible to more people so that they can really rise and lift in the context of their own movements? So that's what I'll say in the long term. And then in the short term, as you know, every year we convene in the fall, our extended community, and October 1st, we will be in New York again. And this is our True Paid Good Summit, and it is a day-long intensive where we bring together our community of people who are working at this intersection of values and profitability and social impact, and who are trying to figure out their true paid good, whether they're emergent or established or experienced, right? We call them the I Have a Dreamers, the Show Me the Moneyers, or the I Believe I Can Flyers. They're all welcome in our space. And it's going to be a phenomenal day that we describe as being one part inspiration, one part perspiration, and one part community and robust, authentic, deep building of community. And this year we have the privilege of bringing in our first international keynote, which will be Paula Abreu, who is coming out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And for people who do not know Paula and Paula's work, her company is called Escolha Su Vida, which means choose your life. And she has sort of been affectionately dubbed the Marie Forleo of Brazil. And what Paula has done is really catalyze the entrepreneurial training and development and personal growth and development movement in Brazil through the context of the Lifestyle Academy, which is the work that she hosts. And Paula's claim to fame has really been one of the first, well, actually the first woman in Brazil, but one of the first women to actually develop and achieve a 7-figure launch in 7 days. And so she's a brilliant online marketer and a brilliant community builder. And she's really going to talk about, she's a very unique approach to how she's done it. She's really going to talk about how do you build community in this virtual reality of this world, and what are the things that she has most learned and what has led her to be able to build the massive movement that she's been able to build. So that's our morning keynote. And then our afternoon keynote is the incredible Miss India Ari, multi Grammy Award winning and multi platinum selling artist. And India is going to be talking about her entrepreneurial journey, which is something she's never spoken about in public before. And she's going to talk about her entrepreneurial journey and share a little bit about how her work has shifted as a cue up for what's going to be her next album, which will be dropping in 2017, which we're so thrilled about, and the campaign and the movement that she's building around her work. So, you know, and then there's all, you know, Raphael Bemperard, and in terms of our experts panel, and venture capitalist Niles Heron from Michigan Fund. And so there's just pivot expert Jenny Blake. There's just, you guys, I mean, in terms of the experts community, but I have to say, and Sean can attest to this because he's been there, if you just look to your left and your right, I mean, you're really done, because the people in the room are just as amazing as the people who are taking the stage. This is really a convening of like-minded, very passionate, quite capable, resourceful movers, shakers, and innovators and impactors. And so hopefully you'll have the opportunity to join us, and you can check us out, movethecrowd.me, as in move.me. To learn more about the summit, or just, you know, Google search True Paid Good Summit, and we will invariably come up in your search.
Thanks for that, Rha. And I just want to say, you know, we're talking about, we started the conversation talking about alignment and purpose, and you know how powerful, important that is. One of the core observations that we have at Lift Economy from working with companies in this sector for the last 6+ years is not everybody has a reference point for wholeness.
Yeah.
And that's some of the powerful, important work that you're doing and of our time is to create those opportunities to experience wholeness. And I can say, you know, personally, from being at the summit last year, it was a very full experience. Very inspiring, and to me it was one of those quintessential moments of what does a whole nourishing human cultural interaction feel like. And this is the thing that, and again I said, it's got to be experienced. We could go on and talk all day, but until you're there and you experience it yourself, I guess I like to say it this way: people have no idea how much abundance is kicked off from a whole system.
Absolutely true.
Right?
That's why I say foundation, my brother. You know, we have a saying, whole self equals whole success. And that is really the mantra for the work that we do, because if you are healed and whole and you're bringing your full self to the equation, everything is possible. Yep. Everything is possible, you know, so.
Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to tie this back into this, you know, this theme of diversity and inclusion that's becoming more and more prominent, which I really appreciate. But I don't remember back when they used to call it affirmative action. Have some quotas or this time. Gotta people.
Yeah.
Again, to this point, I don't think there's not enough reference point for how full and beautiful it becomes when it's whole.
Yeah.
So we can't just hold these people out, or just those people, or have it just work for everybody. And but this is the thing I guess I'm trying to say: it's not a chore. It is such a blessing to have everybody show up.
Absolutely, it's about enrichment, you know. And the truth of the matter is, it is also now about success, because our economy depends on our ability to get whole. You know, I really just want to say that. And you know, major corporations and entities, people who would surprise you, are starting to realize that, and are beginning to look at, you know, how do we think about it beyond supplier diversity and, quote, as you said, quotas and box checking and how many heads we can count. Right. But really, you know, people's capacity and ability to thrive in these structures is at risk right now, because you have a new enlightened generation, thanks to our millennial brothers and sisters out there, who are about meaning and about purpose. And if you're not presenting it, you don't get their talent. And if you don't get their talent, you're feeling it. Because again, the shifting demography has demonstrated itself as such that this is the generation, right, to be engaging if you want to have an inroad into the future. And so when I say to you, we can no longer afford it, I really do mean that we can no longer afford it in many ways, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, nor financially. And so this call to wholeness is very real, and it is also very now. So when you all hear diversity inclusion, I want you all to begin to think wholeness, right? We all need all of our parts in order to work and function well. And so, if we can bring that context, then I think a lot more becomes possible for all of us.
Well, Rha, always a pleasure, deep pleasure, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to converse with you. And if I can speak in terms of wholeness, what a blessing you're here at these times and offering your gifts, to the whole. So big thanks.
Thank you so much. It's my honor, my privilege, and just thank you for your work. Truly, truly, deeply appreciate you and everything that Lift Economy does.
Next Economy Now is a production of Lift Economy. To listen to all of our episodes, go to lifteconomy.com/podcast. That's LIFT economy.com/podcast. You can also sign up for our monthly newsletter at lifteconomy.com/newsletter. Please also rate and review our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.